Hello, welcome back to the gutter, the Grindhouse gutter. And Smoke, I think you've worked up another doozy here. Now it's been a minute since we've talked about exploitation, right? So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that informed your decision this month. So what are we talking about?
yeah. We're gonna go to 1967 for a production by David F. Friedman and a She Freak. So exploitation, not sexploitation this time around, but that's probably what David F. Friedman is most known for is a sexploitation genre.
Although there are little elements of
Yeah,
sexploitation.
there are. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not that, but there's a little
yeah,
touch of
yeah.
it,
There's a
right?
little bit of that, as there were for most of these types of movies that were. I mean, after the fact, now I call them something weird movies because something weird video distributed this and a lot of other ones similar to this, like all the Herschel Gordon Lewis stuff back in the forget maybe it was later '80s. They kind of had a some semi bootleg sort of operation at first, and then a legitimate VHS distribution operation, and then definitely 100% legitimate when they started releasing DVDs. Something weird, and I think everybody knows. Everybody who's into cult horror films, Grindhouse and drive-ins and all that knows something weird video. So,
This is one that I had never seen until now, but I've seen that poster
oh yeah, yeah.
of this for some reason. I've seen that a number of times, but I've never sat down and watched the movie until now. And
Yeah, that, and
we don't do spoilers, like, at least not full spoilers, definitely. And I
yeah,
think you could. This one's a tough one because really the spoiler kind of is in the title or the poster there, right?
the title and the poster itself. Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yes. It's it is because there's an image on the poster that you only see at a certain point in this movie, and it's like it's very short
Yeah.
amount of screen time for it. Right out the gate, we might as well say this too that this is pretty much even though it wasn't touted this way when it came out, Friedman later admitted to the fact that it's basically just a remake of Todd Browning's 1932 classic Freaks.
Yeah.
Itself became a staple of the drive-in and grindhouse circuit because when Freaks was released in 32, it pretty much destroyed Todd Browning's career and it was banned from ever being shown in hardly any theater, I think, for a long time, basically until the 60s came around, until drive-ins and grindhouses became a thing. Then Freaks had a rebirth then.
Now the controversial or touchy subject matter of sideshow freaks.
Oh, yes, that too, yeah.
That's what, Freaks obviously was about, and that's what this is about. And I wonder if because of the blowback that Todd Browning got and everything, and Freaks was so taboo or controversial for so many years, the copy that I watched of this, it had like a little like scroll warning kind of thing. Did you guys see that when you watched this? It's at the very
Yeah,
beginning.
no,
This was some of the things you may or may not see were never really acceptable. I guess it's kind of what it's saying. Like
yeah, and
the conditions that these people may have lived in or something
yeah,
was never acceptable and aren't tolerated today. And now this is in the 60s that I assume that this is
I
done
guess
like that.
so, right? I'm not 100% sure. I assume that was tagged on there in the 60s, right? It's not a modern thing, right? That just
I
happened to
mean,
be on.
it looked old to me. It didn't look like something they
Yeah,
just
yeah,
put
yeah.
on there like, 2 years ago when they re-released it or remastered it or something.
And then the thing about Todd Browning's is he used real, like I said, I don't the politically correct term. I'm just going to use what it was, freaks, like they used for freak shows
Yeah.
prior to vaccinations and things like that that ended up,
People
fixing
with
and curing some
yeah,
of the things that
people that had
conditions or whatever.
natural deformities, like
Yeah, yeah.
born with no hands or no feet, or they've got hair
Or they
all
called
over
them
their
flippers or whatever,
yeah, yeah,
they called them.
hair all over their head, and they'd call them wolf people
Yeah,
or something, stuff like
a
that.
dog boy or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever, a dog face boy. Yeah, they called them very non-PC names, right?
Well, yeah, but
This one, of course, by the time you get here, those types of people were fewer and far between. So, you didn't have his access to them like Todd Brown. Plus, Todd Browning, like I said, was in the carnival scene. So he probably knew who to contact and how to get these people in the movie. And that was the reason why his movie was banned back in the 30s because I mean people weren't ready for that kind of a shock and they go to the fair and see things whatever they didn't have it plastered on the big screen for them.
yeah, this movie was shot at the Kern County Fair, and you actually see the stuff in the background in the movie
Mhm.
in Bakersfield,
Yeah,
California, for like
yeah.
almost no budget at all. So yeah,
I think it was $75,000.
yeah,
75,000
some
is
of
what I
what you're
saw, I think.
seeing here is actually just them just shooting it. And that's the
Hmm.
one thing that in my opinion, works for this movie and against this
Oh yeah.
movie. because it works for it because it's kind of cool to see a snapshot of the carnival and of the 60s and see how it operated and all that stuff, but it also
Yeah.
works against it because some long stretches of this movie you're actually watching them putting up the carnival, doing random innocuous things in the carnival and then tearing down the carnival. It's just like it's just eating up runtime.
Yeah,
Clearly,
and I think that's
clearly they just pointed a camera at it and said, "All right, we're just filming what they're doing," and then they used it.
yeah.
But it's to a detriment though because it slows it to a crawl for long stretches of the movie.
Yeah, it's definitely made for, well, like I said, he loved Friedman loved the carnival atmosphere and circuit and all that stuff. So I guess he's showing as much of that as he can. Now it's going to be boring for those who don't care for seeing that.
Yeah,
Or like you said, bogging the plot down, it's going to do that.
I think it's just
Uh
to get it to feature length.
it
That's just
may I mean
it's like,
maybe
well, we don't
I
have
don't
quite
know.
enough story here, so let's
Well,
just throw a bunch of this shit in there to kind of get it to an hour because it's. I think it's even that it's only like an hour 23 or something, right? It's pretty brief.
pretty brief, but I mean that was kind of the thing for like Blood Feast and all these movies were not much more than an hour. Hell, I think Blood Feast was an hour and 3 minutes maybe.
True.
So a lot of these movies were already kind of short. For this movie, I would say generally that's probably the case. They're trying to stretch things to get it to runtime when they do that. But this movie, I think just because of his Friedman's love for the carnival, he just wanted to show as much of that as he
Yeah.
can. I
To
yeah,
see it,
see, I,
you know.
I can appreciate that from a nostalgic point of view
Exactly. Yeah.
of like the beginning scene when she's at the diner. The main girl in the movie, she's at a diner and then she quits her job at the diner. She quits her job at the diner because she's moving up in the world, but she goes to the fair, to the carnival. But anyways, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's
Well,
move it. But like that scene of like the old vintage gas pumps outside, and like you could watch this as a travelogue almost.
yeah.
If you're interested in vintage stuff like that,
Yeah.
you can see it that way. If you're not, then it's going to be a boring slog probably for most people.
That being said, I was never like truly bored. I just mean the pacing was just like it
Yeah,
would
yeah,
it would just almost stop because shit, now we got to watch them put up canvas, set up a tent.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, all right, but it's still kind of cool. But you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can definitely see how that can bog it down a little bit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You see so much weird stuff and strange oddities and just carnival stuff and things in the background and all that stuff. But there's one interesting item in this film
Yeah.
that they showed in the background.
Yes, an actual mummified corpse. And you have the name, right, of who it was?
Elmer McCurdy.
That's right. He's a,
It was a
a bandit,
literal,
right?
literal corpse, mummified corpse of a real person who was a bandit. Yeah, he was like in
Yeah.
the early 1900s. So it wasn't even mummified. Obviously, that means it's old. But like this wasn't even like recent to 1967. Even at the
No, no.
even at the time of this movie, this thing's like 50, 60 years old. And it was a whole
Yeah.
interesting. There's a whole interesting thing. There's probably other videos on YouTube. Good, you could probably just go search Elmer McCurdy. Not that we want you to go away from our channel, but you can probably search that and find some other things. But if you ever hear about a movie that has a real corpse in it, this is probably the one that people are referring to. This is the one. But there you go. I mean, we could probably go on, and I think this is one that it's interesting enough to where we probably need to take a deep dive into this movie and do it on the podcast
Yeah.
at some point. So
Yeah.
much deeper than today's episode. So
Yeah, and even David Friedman would be. You could do a spotlight on him the same as you could on Herschel Gordon Lewis. But oh man, I don't know if I mentioned that, but they were associates in like the main movies that Herschel Gordon Lewis is known for, such as Blood Feast, Color Me Blood Red, 2000 Maniacs. They were produced by Friedman, so they had that relationship there for a while.
well, what we do here on the gutter is we let, since Professor brings them to the table and everything, we let him make the final calls and the decisions on this. So he does two different ratings. First off, he does the Grindhouse gutter rating, which is 0 through 10. The best way we always describe it is what makes it grindhousey. All the elements put together, 0 through 10. So where does She Freak land on that scale?
I'll start off by saying this is the kind of movie for it was really made for two people. Those who like if you're a something weird fan, and if you're a fan of something weird and the movies they distribute, you've probably already seen this, but if not, you definitely do need to watch it. So if you are a purveyor of those types of movies, which means basically exploitation, sexploitation, splatter in the vein of like Blood Feast, like I was talking about earlier, or you happen to really like carnival stuff, you know, which or you like those types of travelogues of seeing vintage backgrounds and images and stuff of that nature. So Because overall, as a movie, I can see how some people would get a little bored with it overall. I mean, it's just because it's a little bit of a slog here and there. If you don't enjoy those scenes of the fairground and the carnival being put together and taken apart and that kind of thing, so it could be boring for some people, let's say. And now the grindhouse drive-in elements are very much there, but they're not in the sense of it. It's a little bit of sexploitation, but not really. It's not going. There's a stripper, right? And there, I mean, there's no nudity per se. There's no full on like topless stuff or anything like that. There's the typical kind of dances you would see done by like Betty Page or something into something weird
Burlesque.
burlesque type stuff, right? Uh, a couple of scenes of that, right? And but as far as gore, there's only you know two
Not,
scenes I can think of
But
that
yeah,
have any blood in it. They're not full on gore; it's just some blood, right?
yeah.
So as far as the grindhouse elements go, we'll go six. We'll go six on it because it's there. It's just, if you think David F. Friedman, you might be thinking Herschel Gordon Lewis and you might be thinking Blood Feast or 2000 Maniacs. No, this isn't that. So you have that, but so a little bit of effects, a little bit of blood, a little bit of sexploitation, but nothing over the top. So that's why I think it falls into the six. I think it was fair enough. I think.
So for as far as the actual rating of the movie, so you'd go 0 through 5, but we don't do stars here in the gutter.
Yeah.
It depends on what genre it is. So since we're filing this away as exploitation, you're going to be giving out X's. So 0 through 5, how many X's?
We'll go two and three quarter, I guess. It's enjoyable, but like I said, there are some things in here that kind of drag it a little bit in certain places, and it doesn't have a lot of the grindhouse because the grindhouse score is kind of low. It doesn't have a lot of gore, it doesn't have a lot of just grindhouse elements in general. Uh, but it is entertaining in that way. Like if you like something weird video stuff that they put out, you will like this in some degree. But it's just don't expect to like it as much as the other movies I was talking about,
Feels
2000
like it feels
Maniacs,
like it's
etc.
mostly all the elements are mostly there towards the end with the shock value.
Yeah, yeah,
Like that's where most of the punch of this movie is.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
well, there you go. That's it for this month. Now, next month we're across the podcast and here on Grindhouse Gutter and one of our other YouTube series, Video Vortex. Across all of them, we're going to be celebrating the year of 1986. So I think we're kind of dubbing the whole month the 40 years of 1986 because it's
Hmm.
40 years since 1986. So, with that in mind, what movie are we talking about from 1986 next month here on the Grindhouse?
Yes, it is going to be a doozy. This one is, and I don't think anybody here has seen it but me. So it's Combat Shop. So it's like we said, it's for 1986. Technically, it was made in 1984, and I think had a release like in festivals maybe in 1984. But then Troma picked it up. Uh, it's not in-house Troma production, but they picked it up for distribution, and that was when it got that wider release in 1986.
Well, we'll dive into Combat Shock next month. So we encourage you to stick here on the channel. Go check out Video Vortex, like we just talked about. Also, our other series, Hammer Horror in Order, where we're going through the Hammer films, thrillers and horrors in the order in which they were released. You don't want to miss that. Of course, episodes of the All American Spook Show podcast come out right here every Monday at 6 p.m. East on the YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcast. Multiple ways to listen in and watch that. So we encourage you to do that. So, for the professor, Tiana, I'm Josh. We are the All American Spook Show, and we'll talk to you next month.